Nikki Haley's officially out, so it's game on. Time for the mano a mano throwdown. We're getting down and dirty. It's the final countdown till the election day. Are you ready for this fight? Let's get going. Also, MSNBC proved just how vile and also out of touch they are, and we're going to let you see it for yourself. Also, Joe Biden has completely lost it, and he's being mocked for the fool that he is by some comedy legends. You're going to want to see that. And, oh, God, MTG tells a British reporter exactly what she can do, and it's, well, the F word is involved. We're going to give you all of that coming up right now. It's a special edition of Larry, brought to you by Electronic Payments Coalition. I'm Larry O'Connor, and I just said it. It's time for Larry. You like our new set? It's a heck of a set, isn't it? We spent a lot of money on this and all the extras back there. No, I'm kidding. We're actually live on Capitol Hill right now. It's the Cannon House office building. The members of the Republican majority are hosting what do they call it? A radio row, although it's not radio, it's media. It's a media row for members of Congress to give a preview to the State of the Union, which is scheduled tomorrow night. And so we're live with this special location here as we present to you exactly what you want to know in today's news and world events. And really the biggest news, can't be denied, is Nikki Haley 2 hours ago in her home state of South Carolina calling it quits. Her ill-fated attempt to be the Republican nominee in 2024 is officially over.
Good morning. Just over a year ago, I launched my campaign for president. When I began, I said the campaign was grounded in my love for our country. Just last week, my mother, a first-generation immigrant, got to vote for her daughter for president. Only in America. I am filled with the gratitude for the outpouring of support we've received from all across our great country. But the time has now come to suspend my campaign. I said I wanted Americans to have their voices heard. I have done that. I have no regrets. And although I will no longer be a candidate, I will not stop using my voice for the things I believe in. Our national debt will eventually crush our economy. A smaller federal government is not only necessary for our freedom, it is necessary for our survival. The road to socialism is the road to ruin for America. Our Congress is dysfunctional and only getting worse. It is filled with followers, not leaders. Term limits for Washington politicians are needed now more than ever. Our world is on fire because of America's retreat.
All right, listen, today's Unity Day, right? Today's the day we all need to band together. We all need to unify. We should, celebrate the fact that there's no more primary process. We've got an uncontested, basically, presumptive nominee. I don't want to dance on Nikki Haley's political grave, but can I just point out that the delivery here, this is a 3.5-minute prepared speech that she's delivering on teleprompter. And part of the Nikki Haley issue here, the part of the reason that she was unable to connect with voters is that, do you hear the cadence, the sing-songy, I'm your new preschool teacher, and I'm here to teach you about the alphabet. And maybe if you're very good, you can have a treat after nap time. She's talking about the fact that America is in retreat and our Congress is dysfunctional and we got to have term limits and it's outrageous and the spending and the... Our nation is on fire because of America's retreat. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, I'm sorry. I know that people don't like the fact that the advent of Donald Trump in American politics changes everything. But guess what? The advent of Donald Trump in American politics changes everything. And you can't go back to 1996 and be a Bob Dole kind of Jeb Bushy kind of John McCain. It doesn't work. We see through it. And that's part of the problem, the disconnect here. Is that she's running a campaign from a different era. And yes, I know that there is a double standard for female politicians versus male politicians. I didn't create the double standard, but it is there. And if you have a voice like that, it just starts to get annoying. Believe it or not, the American people actually do take into account the fact that they got to live with this person for 4 years. And when you deliver a speech to the American people on a daily basis like this, you don't actually come across as a genuine human being. You seem like an AI robot creation of a politician. All right, I'm sorry. I needed to get that off my desk because I'm glad she's out, and I want us all to come together. I do. I really do. But I don't know if we're going to come together based on some of the things she's about to say. Watch.
Standing by our allies in Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan is a moral imperative. But it's also more than that. If we retreat further, there will be more war, not less. As important, while we stand strong for the cause of freedom, we must bind together as Americans. We must turn away from the darkness of hatred and division. I will continue to promote all those values, as is the right of every American. I sought the honor of being your president, but in our great country, being a private citizen is privilege enough in itself. And that's a privilege I very much look forward to enjoying. In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well. I wish anyone well who would be America's president. Our country is too precious to let our differences divide us. I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee. But on this question, as she did on so many others, Margaret Thatcher provided some good advice when she said, quote, "Never just follow the crowd. Always make up your own mind."
I don't think Lady Thatcher made that statement in reference to party unity and building a political coalition to actually get stuff done and fix the problems in Great Britain. In fact, I'm pretty sure Lady Thatcher was a master at building coalitions, bringing people together and asking people to join her. And frankly, as the Iron Lady, using some brute force to compel people to join her in that coalition. I don't think she's really quoting Thatcher in a way that Thatcher would approve. Certainly not in this context. If our dangers that we're facing are so incredibly serious, as Nikki Haley just articulated, then why on earth would she hesitate at this moment to join in the opposition to the man who has brought us all of these dangers? I mean, clearly she doesn't think that Donald Trump is the perfect choice. But if she hasn't reached the conclusion that he's certainly a hell of a lot better choice than Joe Biden is, then what the hell are we doing here? And the fact that she's withholding that support and withholding that endorsement, you got to say, okay, the only reason you're doing that clearly is because you're trying to squeeze something here. You're trying to get something out of this equation. Okay, fine, I'll give you my endorsement, but only if you make me what, Secretary of State? Pay off my campaign debt? What? And again, this is part of the reason why she didn't connect with voters, because people don't trust her. People think that she's willing to do or say anything. I mean, honestly, if she's really going to be honest about where she has stood up until this moment in this campaign, she should say, you know what? If I wanted to endorse Donald Trump, I would have gotten out after Iowa when I finished third behind DeSantis, who got out at that time. No, I don't think Donald Trump should be president, so I'm not going to endorse him. Instead, I'm going to, run third party or something. I mean, that at least would be intellectually honest, but she doesn't come across that way. She comes across disingenuous. So what's really her scheme here? Well, let's listen to how she finishes this up.
It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away. And our conservative cause badly needs more people. This is now his time for choosing. I end my campaign with the same words I began it. from the book of Joshua. I direct them to all Americans, but especially to so many of the women and girls out there who put their faith in our campaign. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for God will be with you wherever you go. In this campaign, I have seen our country's greatness. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, America. God bless you.
All right. Good for you, and Godspeed. And it was a very classy exit there, despite my annoyance at the cadence and the way she delivers remarks. But now it's incumbent on Donald Trump to earn those votes, including hers, including her support. All right, I guess that's one way of looking at it. Listen, all bets are off here. I've been thinking about this, and I'm thinking, how could she possibly, after all of this, endorse Donald Trump, after all the things that she said? And then, well, I was reminded of the fact that just this weekend, Mitch McConnell was asked if he was going to endorse Donald Trump. The man standing next to him at this moment, John Thune, member of leadership in the Senate, he endorsed Donald Trump. So he was asked, McConnell was, are you going to do the same? And if not, why not?
Over the weekend, Senator Thune came out and he endorsed Trump. The other lieutenants have endorsed Trump. Why are you holding out and endorsing the likely nominee?
I don't have any announcement about that today.
He wasn't asked if he had an announcement about it. He was asked why. It sure looks like there's no love lost between Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell. Let's face it. Donald Trump has gone so far as to even suggest that Mitch McConnell is in bed with the Chinese because he's married to a Chinese-American woman. That, in many respects, could be a low blow in American politics at this point, right? So, I mean, we shouldn't count on Mitch McConnell endorsing Donald Trump anytime soon. Or maybe Mitch McConnell just endorsed Donald Trump just this morning, about 15 minutes after Nikki Haley made her statement. Will Nikki Haley endorse Donald Trump? Yeah, probably. Let's face it, Ted Cruz not only endorsed Donald Trump in 2016, after fighting on the floor of the Republican convention in Cleveland to try to steal the nomination away from him, and after Donald Trump suggested that Ted Cruz's dad was involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, not only did Ted Cruz endorse Donald Trump, but honestly, Ted Cruz probably became the most loyal fighter on behalf of Trump's agenda in the United States Senate. He was probably the most reliable voice of support for what Donald Trump got accomplished during his 4 years as president. Anything can happen in American politics. In fact, let's just take a quick moment and look down at Mar-a-Lago. While all of this is going on in Washington, D.C., and in New York, and in South Carolina, what's Donald Trump up to on this day that he has secured the nomination to once again run as the Republican nominee for president?
Had anything like it. No country has ever had anything like it. The number today could be 15 million people, and they're coming from rough places and dangerous places. And we had that shut down. We had everything going so beautifully. When Joe Biden goes to the beach, because somebody on his staff thinks he looks very good in a bathing suit, until he can't get his feet out of the sand or lift the chair, which weighs about 9 ounces. Joe Biden, if he would have just left everything alone, he could have gone to the beach. He would have had a tremendous success at the border and elsewhere. So we're going to take back our country. We're going to make sure we are going to do it right. We're going to have the greatest economy ever in the history of our. Had anything?
Oh boy! So there you go. That's what Donald Trump's up to, riffing on Joe Biden at the beach in his bathing suit, unable to lift his lawn chair or get his feet out of the sand. Are you ready for this campaign? It is March 6th. This is the earliest in modern American history. This is the earliest time during the era of primaries and caucuses to determine nominees that we have had solidified now the two people who are running as a Republican and a Democrat. This is the earliest ever. We now have a long, brutal march to Election Day, and it is on, and it's going to be brutal. It's going to be bloody. It's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be insane, and I can't wait. Our friends at Electronic Payments Coalition want you to know about how important your credit card rewards are and how they're in danger right now. Yeah, that's right. Millions of Americans earn and use credit card rewards. Corporate megastores now want to take those awards away. These are rewards that you use on groceries and school supplies, the cash back to save on gas and grow your small business. In this economy, you need those rewards to keep your head above water, including travel miles that you use to make memories. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill is going to eliminate these credit card rewards. No more travel miles, no more cash back. When lawmakers help corporate mega stores line their pockets, American families pay for it. You pay for it. Nope. Tell your senator right now to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. Visit handsoffmyrewards.com. You'll get all the tools right there and all the information you need to take action today. That's handsoffmyrewards.com. Last night on MSNBC, as these results were coming in, they had a righteous, all liberal female panel of observers. You had Jen Psaki, you had Joy Reid, you had Rachel Maddow, and you had Nicole Wallace, all telling you exactly what was going on here in the Super Tuesday primaries. And there was a moment when Jen Psaki, who, by the way, just up until about a minute and a half ago, was collecting a paycheck from you. You paid her salary as the spokesperson for the White House. And she was analyzing the exit polls in Virginia. And she noticed something about the number one issue for Virginians when voting in the Republican primary. Take a watch.
I mean, if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue.
Yes.
I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very, very
But
contested
you're
area.
thinking,
Build a
like,
wall.
what? I mean, if you look.
By the way, sorry, Alex Wagner. Forgot you were on the panel too, but let's face it, you didn't have much to say. They're laughing. They're mocking. They're shocked that Virginians or anyone cares about immigration or border security, and certainly people who live 1,000 miles away from the border. It's amazing how the people who are paid to deliver news to you, the American people, aren't actually up to speed on the news. Or they're well aware of the fact that Americans are concerned about immigration on the border because of security, because of the financial impacts, because of the strain on our social systems that have been set up for American citizens, and yes, because of crime and the heinous violent crime that many Americans are suffering from at the hands of people who are completely unvetted in this country illegally and shouldn't be in this country illegally. They could very well be aware of that, but their contempt for you, their disgust for you overrides the facts at hand. Jen Psaki says that she lives in Virginia. Well, our colleague Katie Pavlich at Town Hall points out that just this week, MS-13 gang members were sentenced for kidnapping and murdering 2 young people. The gang members restrained, attacked, and killed them, stabbing and chopping him more than 100 times with knives, a machete, and a pickaxe. Afterwards, the gang broke one of the young man's legs so his body would fit into a pre-dug hole. Just last week, a young girl was kidnapped and murdered by an illegal immigrant. And by the way, Laken Riley, her murder happened in Georgia, also not on the border. But no, let's joke about the fact that Virginia has a border with West Virginia. This is less about their ignorance as it is about their hatred for you. They hold you in such low esteem. And they literally don't know what's going on with voters. Why should you care about the border? But actually, it got even worse. On MSNBC, here's our friend Joy Reid breaking down the way Republicans voted.
They're voting on race. They're voting on this idea of an invasion of brown people over the border. The idea that they can't get whatever job they want. A black person got it, therefore drive all the blacks out of the colleges, get rid of DEI. That is what they're voting on. They're just voting specifically on racial animus at this stage. It isn't about economics.
I gotta pause here. I know, and we'll play the rest of the clip, but this shot is so important here. This tells you everything you need to know about the way news is delivered to you now on cable news and on places, you know, owned by NBC News and Universal Comcast. Who here on this panel will be able to say to Joy Reid, well, actually, you know, speaking as a Republican, the issues, the way you describe them, are not exactly how we think and how we believe. And I'm sure that there are some Republican viewers out there that would like to hear their point of view and their perspective articulated, right? Not even the one token. You know, over on CNN, you got your token. And let's face it, over on MSNBC, or excuse me, on Fox News, oftentimes you'll get your Jessica Tarlov or your Geraldo Rivera, right? Or you used to have your Bob Beckel, may rest in peace, or his or the Juan Williams, right? I mean, good Lord. There's a guy, Simon Rosenberg. There's five liberals right now that are regular contributors to Fox News that are on the payroll who are constantly sitting there saying, just so you know, over on ABC News, who do you have? You have Bill Kristol. And on CNN, you get Jonah Goldberg. But look at that panel. Look at there, and there's no one in the production offices. There's no producer. There's no one in the control room. You know who actually is sitting here watching this? Because I've done TV hits in the past on MSNBC. They don't invite me back anymore. But I will tell you, I will guarantee it, in fact. Do you know who's in this room right here who is rolling their eyes and thinking, Joy Reid is a moron and a racist one at that? You know who's doing it? The cameraman. The sound guy. And by the way, half of the ladies in the hair and makeup room also, they're laughing at this. They find this just contemptible. All right, we'll let Joy Reid go back on her racist rant against you MAGA fascist racists.
Economic. No, which is why Trump killed the immigration bill. Correct. That's why. And because otherwise he can't run against the other and brown people and people who don't look like him, like his supporters, his base of supporters coming across the border and scaring people and killing people or whatever he's threatening out there. I mean, if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue. I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very contested area. Build a wall.
Like, what? I mean, when I was in New Hampshire, people were talking about the northern border as a threat. Because Trump has indoctrinated people with this fear of people who do not look like them being a threat to them.
But as you know, I mean, in every election cycle, particularly when there's a Democratic incumbent, we get reminded about the borders. And the borders become a thing again. And then if there's a Republican in office, we don't think about them anymore. Mm-hmm. It's the deficit and the border. Like you make these things an issue. You make them into boogeymen. You make them into something that grabs you from under the bed at night as soon as you wake up. As long as there's a Democratic incumbent to blame on it, you make sure that nothing's ever done to fix either. And then you hope that people stop talking about them once you've got a Republican in office.
All right, so let's unpack that now that you've seen the entire clip, including Jen Psaki's glorious dissertation on Virginians who actually think that there might be a problem with having a completely wide open border and over 10 million people crossing illegally, completely unvetted, who then end up committing violent crimes in our neighborhoods. Let's unpack this a little bit, shall we? First of all, major insight into not only how they view you with contempt, but also their own narcissistic perspective on politics. Let's unpack really what they're saying here. Why should Virginians care about the border? They don't live on the border, so it doesn't affect them, right? I mean, it doesn't even cross their minds that Virginians could actually have compassion for their fellow Americans, Texans, Arizonans who live on the border and have to deal with this, even Californians. It doesn't even cross their minds that you don't have to be directly affected by a horrible policy that a president has unilaterally implemented to actually say, wait a second, that's wrong. And that needs to be fixed. And he doesn't deserve to be president because he's done this to this country. You see, for them, it's like, Virginia doesn't have a border, so why do they care? Because that's how they view politics, you see. Their perspective on politics is we need to go out and do things and give out hands out, and we got to give out free money and free benefits and free things so that people know that they need the government to provide those things, and then they'll support us and keep voting for us because that's why people vote a certain way. It's a completely selfish, unpatriotic, un-American, narcissistic way of looking at politics, but that's their perspective. It doesn't even occur to them that somebody who isn't directly affected by the border crisis that Biden has created might actually want to say, no, that's wrong. Let's fix it. And then Jen Psaki or Rachel Maddow would say, well, how is it directly affecting you negatively? And of course, the appropriate answer is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And the law is the law. And our borders are our borders. It doesn't have to directly affect me for me to be passionate about it. Fascinating, isn't it? When you think about it through that perspective. This is how they view politics. And to Rachel Maddow's old trope here that, oh, it doesn't matter if a Democrat's in the White House, they bring this out and they keep talking about it. No, I'm pretty sure Donald Trump was talking about the border all through his presidency and certainly during his reelection campaign because he was wanting to finish that wall and finish building the wall and protecting that border. I'm pretty sure during George W. Bush's presidency, we talked about protecting the border for national security concerns, actually. And he was criticized by his own voters for not doing more on the border. I remember that vividly, in fact. This has absolutely nothing to do with party politics. And oh, by the way, Rachel Maddow, this isn't a pretend issue. Literally, Joe Biden has broken whatever semblance of order and law enforcement we had on our southern border over the last 3 years. The American people are not stupid. They know that this isn't invented. This isn't make-believe. We've seen plenty. In fact, last I checked, Joe Biden's latest talking point is that we have a crisis at the border, right? Isn't Joe Biden saying that all the time now when they're blaming Republicans for not passing their bill in the Senate that would have actually made things worse? But clearly, Rachel Maddow, clearly Jen Psaki, clearly Joy Reid, this is not a invented issue. It's not make-believe. If now even Joe Biden has added to his talking points, yes, we have a very bad border crisis. Joe Biden, by the way, or excuse me, Joy Reid, not done with her ridiculous, outrageous, offensive, racist comments. She had more.
These things were perfect. You had one crisis, bruh. It was called the pandemic. And you know what you did? You bollocksed it completely. You did so poorly at managing your sole crisis. The one hard thing you do, the reason he doesn't look old like Biden looks older, the presidency ages you when you do the job. Obama went gray because he was doing the work. Donald Trump looks the same as when he ran because he was playing golf the whole time. His one job
you think
was
that
to
hair
manage.
color's natural?
That too. But the reality is he had one job, manage this crisis. And he messed it up so badly that they had to do the stimmy. People love the stimmy. Why did they have to do the stimmy? Because 1 million bodies are in the ground.
It was
because
Democrats.
of how poorly he managed an airborne virus.
He managed an airborne virus poorly by listening to the Democrat plant Anthony Fauci in the White House. And that was a mistake. He shouldn't have given Fauci so much power. I don't think you should raise a fake hair color issue with Joy Reid. That's a bit of a faux pas, right? Considering she literally has a Donald Trump hairdo herself. But now we've got the answer to the question, why does Joe Biden look so old and so decrepit and so broken down and so incapable of doing his job? He's only 3 years older than Donald Trump. Well, now we know the answer because he's had to deal with so many crises and Donald Trump didn't. Well, I mean, that allows us to segue to President Joe Biden's broken brain and his despicable pandering. Here he is talking to a handful of students from historic black colleges. This was audio only, so Lord knows what Joe Biden was wearing at the time. But here, take a listen.
President Biden, I'm actually, just to let you know, I'm one of those HBCU graduates. I graduated from Johnson C. Smith University. I'm a fifth generation Smithite right here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Whoa.
Yes. So it's
I'm Delaware State, so we got to, the vice president and I have an ongoing debate on what's the best HBCU in America.
Delaware State? First of all, by the way, I'm thrilled that she loves the historic black colleges and that she's celebrating her alma mater. She really should thank Donald Trump, who was the first president in American history to give permanent funding status to historically black colleges. But of course, we can't talk about that. Instead, we have to play chummy with a man who is so white he literally blends into the white background you see on the picture in front of you, or the white note card with all of his cheat sheets as he's sitting there. And Joe Biden now makes the claim that he went to Delaware State. Well, he did not go to Delaware State for a couple of reasons. First of all, he went to University of Delaware. He was a blue hen. Fill in your punchline on your own. And he didn't go to Delaware State because, well, may I remind you, it's a historically black college. And he is historically not black. But that doesn't stop him from pandering on race. You know, the last time we checked on Joe Biden pandering on race, he was sitting with a black family eating fried chicken. Remember that? We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. And it was, objectively speaking, racist. We're going to get Joe Biden out there and he's going to sit with a black family. Oh, great. Let's bring fried chicken. I hear they like that. And thankfully, credit where it's due, Stephen A. Smith on his show, he pointed it out. Why is he the only one? Well, he and I are the only ones pointing it out.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, if we're being fair, if we saw Donald Trump sit down in a black household, eating fried chicken with a father and a son, what would we say? What would we say? What would we say? You know, folks out there would be calling it racist. Well, if it's racist for him, and I'm not saying it would be, but if it's racist for him, why wouldn't it be racist for Biden?
Well, of course, the answer is it is. The reason we don't call it out is because he's got a D after his name, and just Democrats can't be racist. I mean, except for when they invented the Klan and supported segregation and the Confederacy and slavery. And other than that, though, they can't possibly be racist. Come along, Stephen. Now you're gonna get it soon. Take your time. You're very close. You're very close. But that's just Joe Biden being an inept, pandering racist. What about his broken brain? What about his inability to read from a teleprompter the size of Jerry Jones's Jumbotron at AT&T Field for Dallas Cowboys games? Have you ever seen a shot of the teleprompter he uses? Seriously, it's gigantic. And here he is delivering remarks yesterday, prepared remarks on the teleprompter, and he just can't do it. Look at his face. Look at him having trouble even seeing the giant words in front of him.
Fair competition is the key to my economic vision. To build an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. And it's working. Wages are up more than prices. Unemployment has reached historic lows. Families are finally getting a little breathing room.
Number one, wages are not up more than prices. Inflation is still historically high, especially compared to when he took office. And number two, did you catch the very beginning of this?
Fair competition is the key to my economic vision.
His economic fission? Fission? He either can't read or he can't speak, or he has no actual comprehension for the English language, or it could be all of the above. It's up to you. But there's more.
With that, I'm going to turn this over to Lael, the Director of National Economic Council. But I'm supposed to leave for a meeting with the Business Roundtable on the telephone. But I'm going to hang around and listen a little bit. So with your permission, I'd like to stay and my staff will tell me when the drop dead hour occurs.
Maybe we shouldn't use the term drop dead hour with a man in his current state. But you know how we keep hearing from people who work with Biden, either on the staff or from Capitol Hill, elected officials, who keep telling us that he's on the top of his game. He's got a command of all the facts and data. He's impressive. He's unbelievable. He does triple backflips in the middle of a meeting. This is the guy we see. Is it me? Is someone lying here? So he's asking permission if he can stick around. He says his staff will tell him his drop dead moment. And then while he's sitting there reading notes, a reporter asks him a question.
I love questions. I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
What's your message for Super Tuesday voters? Everyone, please move this way. Super Tuesday, sir. Do you have a message for voters? Thanks so much.
Thank you all.
Listen, I stand behind no man in my ability and desire to mock this man, make fun of him, and drag him whenever possible, because he's a bad guy. He's always been a bad guy. He's the worst in American politics. He's corrupt. He's a preener. He's a liar. He's contemptible. He holds his political adversaries not as opponents, but as enemies. And he holds the voters of his political enemies in contempt. So he deserves to be trashed. But I want to watch this video with you one more time. And we're going to watch it from the perspective of whether we are seeing an individual in distress. I want you to watch his eyes. I'll turn the sound off after he says that he's going to get in trouble if he answers questions. Watch this.
I better not start the questions. I'll get in trouble.
Now watch his eyes and watch him looking at the handlers, at the staff, at the people running things at the White House. Clearly, he's not running anything at the White House. Doesn't he look scared? Doesn't he look like he's drifting? Doesn't he look like he's lost it? I mean, what is happening in this White House? Daily, we are seeing events like this. And I truly think he's being mishandled, misused, honestly, maybe even abused or mistreated in some way. Here, let me show you an example. He's about to go up the short stairs at Air Force One, and a reporter asks a completely benign question that, of course, he flies off the handle at. The question is, and you got a jet engine roaring here. This is his idea of a press conference. He'll only answer questions when there's a giant jet engine running in the background. But the question is, what's your message to Democrats who are concerned about your poll numbers, right? Watch.
Mr. President, what's your message to Democrats who are concerned about your poll numbers?
Our poll numbers, the last 5 polls you guys didn't report, I'm winning 5 in a row. You guys only live in the New York Times. They're a great paper.
Last 5 polls, I'm winning, and you won't report it. Yeah, you know, if there's one thing about the media, they are just so unfair to Joe Biden. They never give him a fair break, right? I mean, that's, if we can all agree on one thing about the media, they're in the tank for Donald Trump. Last 5 polls, I'm winning. Here's the latest polls dating back to mid-February. That would be 3 weeks worth of polls at Real Clear Politics. If you look, I'm seeing only 4 polls that Trump is not leading. One of them is a tie. And the 2 that show Biden in the lead, he's up by 1 point. The one poll, Quinnipiac, that shows Biden up by 4, you got to go back to February 15th for that one. He mentioned the New York Times. The New York Times poll has him down by 4 points, actually. CBS News, he's also down by 4, with Trump topping out at 52%. In fact, Joe Biden has not led Donald Trump in the Real Clear Politics average of polls since mid-November. That's over 3 months now. And right now, Donald Trump has his largest lead. Now, I delivered that news to you and those facts to you in contrast to what you just saw from Joe Biden when he emphatically told that reporter that he's led in the last 5 in a row, right? 5 in a row, he said. And I ask you to evaluate these two bits of information. Joe Biden thinking that he's leading in the last 5 polls in a row, and the actual facts that show, well, quite the opposite. And I leave you to ponder and come up with your own answer. Is Joe Biden just flat out lying? Or are Joe Biden's handlers lying to him? When he has his briefing with his political team and he says, what are the polls looking like? Do they walk in saying, perfect, they're great, they're amazing, boss, you're trouncing him, everything's great, don't you worry. And then they look at each other, they look at their watch, and they say, is it time? Is it time yet? Is it time? When do we tell him? Do you want to tell him? I don't want to tell him. Who's going to tell him? Because I think that's actually what's happening here. I think Joe Biden actually does think that his economy is going great guns. I actually think Joe Biden truly believes that he's closed the border. At this point, I think Joe Biden really does think that he's trouncing Trump in the polls. Or he's a big fat liar. Either way. You know what? Let's check in with comedy legend Dana Carvey on his podcast with fellow SNL alum David Spade, because they sum up exactly here where Joe Biden is. And let me just tell you, when popular culture comedians like this are willing to expose Joe Biden, boy, this is a shift in the tide.
I started with Biden because the border's all the rage now. Everyone's crazy for the border. So I did Biden 3 years ago, and he's at a press conference. Mr. President, do you have any idea how you're going to handle the crisis at the border? And Biden's like, first of all, let's get our facts straight. There's no crisis at the border. Come on. And he goes, how do you know, sir? He goes, because it says so on the piece of paper. Come on. It says on the paper. Says the paper right there. And then recently, everyone wants to close the border. Everyone's screaming. Biden's up there. I'll close the border harder than anyone's ever closed the border. 'Cause I know how to close borders. Come on, Jack. And the press is like, but last time, get your facts straight. I'll beat you the hell out of you. Will you dog paste phone on his shoulder? Come on. Let's do some push-ups. I'll close the border like nobody's ever closed it. The border patrol, the border can't believe it's not butter.
That's a good ending.
It's great ending. And again, funnier than anything you're going to see on Saturday Night Live in the last, 10 years. And certainly funnier than anything Jon Stewart's going to deliver on The Daily Show. Let me tell you, when that happens, when Dana Carvey and David Spade are just fine doing that, things are looking up. I promise you. As Andrew Breitbart used to say, politics downstream from culture, especially popular culture. Marjorie Taylor Greene was at Mar-a-Lago last night when Donald Trump was celebrating his near clean sweep of the Super Tuesday primaries. And a reporter, a British reporter, formerly of BBC, now there's something called the News Agents, cornered Marjorie Taylor Greene and asked what started like a fine series of questions having to do with who the running mate for Donald Trump should be. But it was actually a trap to be obnoxious, rude, and disgusting to Marjorie Taylor Greene. But Marjorie Taylor Greene had the last laugh. Watch how it transpired.
Trump is closer to picking his VP, and should you be on that list?
Oh, that's the question everyone asks. And no, I don't think Nikki Haley should be on the list. But of course, President Trump will choose who he wants for VP.
Would you like to be on that list?
He's got a long list. I support President Trump in any way he'd ask me. But I can assure you it won't be Nikki Haley.
And can you tell me why so many people that support Donald Trump love conspiracy theories, including yourself? He seems to attract lots of conspiracy theorists.
Well, let me tell you, you're a conspiracy theorist, and the left and the media spreads more conspiracy theories. We like the truth. We like supporting our Constitution, our freedoms, and America first. So,
what about Jewish space lasers? Tell us about Jewish space lasers.
Why don't you go talk about Jewish space lasers? And really, why don't you off? How about that?
Thanks. Thank
you. Okay. All right. So listen, yesterday I sort of half-jokingly admonished Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for dropping an F-bomb on the streets of New York when she was upset about the protesters going after her. So to be fair, if my kids are watching, that's not always the best way to deal with an adversary. Although My heart's with MTG on this one. And I do listen, she tried to gracefully get out of it. She said, yeah, you know what? You're the conspiracy theorist. I'm W. She starts to walk away. It was the uptight, nasty little Brit. But I go back to Piers Morgan or John Oliver or anything. There is something about a person with a British accent lecturing us Americans about our politics that really does rub you. It just hits your raw nerve. And so I understand why MTG would just say, yeah, why don't you go F off? Now, of course, she's being criticized. She's being attacked. That's a breach of decorum. You shouldn't do such a thing. That is awful. That is terrible. That's not how you should talk to a member of the media. This is a war on the First Amendment. This is outrageous. Well, let's just be clear. Challenging Marjorie Taylor Greene and talking about conspiracy theories and Jewish space lasers, which is, what is this? That was 4 years ago, that story. She's already talked about it. She's already explained it. She's already moved on from there. It is, so, of course, all you want to do is keep, trust me. I think that there's plenty to talk to Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and AOC about things that they've done and said in their past. And I'm not even comparing them. I'm just saying this is lazy journalism. If you are attacking Marjorie Taylor Greene with a relentless Jewish space laser line of questioning, you're asking for a response like that. The only reason you're asking that is because you want to get a rise out of her, that you want some sort of viral moment that this Brit certainly got. Does that bother me? Listen, again, I would prefer that everybody sort of keep the clean language if possible. If you're a congressman, a congresswoman, I still sort of enjoy the fact that there is a sense of decorum. Look, I'm on Capitol Hill right now, and it's cool. You got columns, you got chandeliers, you got, American institutions, and I appreciate that. I do. But you know what bothers me even more? You know what bothers me more than Marjorie Taylor Greene giving back exactly what she's getting from a reporter? What bothers me even more is when our paid employee, the spokesperson for the White House, Karine Jean-Pierre, acts atrociously to a reporter for asking a completely serious and reasonable question. Nobody believes that the Jewish space laser question was serious or meant to actually have elicit a response of any kind of normalcy with regard to something that matters to the American people. But yesterday in the press briefing, a reporter did ask something that matters. He asked a question about how Joe Biden seems incredibly reliant on note cards when he's doing a public appearance. Why is that? That is a reasonable question, and it goes to something that most Americans care about, and that is whether their president has any kind of mental competency. Also seems relevant after the Her report that said he doesn't. So watch how Karine Jean-Pierre handled, again, a serious, reasonable question from a reporter.
If I may, the president, I noticed, had note cards at the border when he was doing his briefing there. He also had note cards last Friday with the Italian prime minister. Why does the president rely so heavily on note cards?
You're upset because the president has note cards? You're asking me a question about the president having note cards?
I'm asking why.
The president who has had probably one of the most successful first 3 years of an administration than any modern day president. He's done more in the first 3 years than most presidents who had 2 terms. You're asking me about note cards? I'm not speaking to you right now, James. I'm talking to your friend over here, Ed. So thank you so much. But thank you so much for interjecting. Go ahead, Ed.
I was just asking why he relies so heavily on note cards.
I think what's important here and what the American people care about is how this president is delivering for them. And that's what he's doing. And that's what's the most important thing here.
Wow. Yeah, so that's frankly a little bit more disconcerting. Did she drop an F-bomb? No. But the vile contempt that she had for a reporter for daring to ask, again, what is a completely reasonable and understandable question is frankly much more disconcerting and much more upsetting than Marjorie Taylor Greene at a party at Mar-a-Lago actually pushing back on a reporter who was being just an obnoxious, rude B-word, let's say. And to the reporter's point, I mean, take a look at when Joe Biden, we'll just play this while I talk to you. We don't have the audio on, and what's being said here doesn't matter. So here's the president. He's down in Brownsville. He's meeting with Border Patrol. And look at the note card. If you could make that out, let's make it as big as possible. That's just not a note card. There's paragraphs of information on there. He knows nothing. Look at how much data is on that card right there. And he's got multiple cards like that too, by the way. This is supposed to show Joe Biden on the top of his game and being the master of the border issue, right? And he can't walk through the room and get a presentation from police without studying literally everything that he's supposed to say. And this is not just a one-off. We see this all the time from this man, whether it's a one-on-one interview with the head of state, where he doesn't just glance down so he can remember a name or remember an issue. He reads directly from the card. It seems like a pretty normal thing to ask about why this president, unlike any other president that we've seen in modern times, has to have a note card with literally everything he's supposed to say and do. And that's how Karine Jean-Pierre responds. That's how the official spokesperson from the White House responds. Please. Marjorie Taylor Greene was nice to that contemptible reporter compared to what we just got. And by the way, she kept it up as usual with Peter Doocy, again, asking a relatively reasonable and pertinent question at the briefing.
President Biden publicly addressed Laken Riley's murder, allegedly at the hands of an illegal immigrant who was released by law enforcement multiple times on Thursday night. I know he's got a statement, but what about at the State of the Union?
Look, I do want, this is such a tragic story and obviously situation. This is someone's life that was lost. So I do want to always acknowledge and extend our deepest condolences to her family and to her friends and the people who loved her. And so want to always be sure to say that, and because it's so tragic. Look, I don't have anything to share about the president's speech as it relates to that particular question that you have. But we want to always be sure that we lift up the families who have lost their loved ones in that way. And I would reiterate, you just asked me about the Border Patrol chief. The president was just there with the current chief, Owens. The president went to the border, obviously Brownville, Texas, to lift up the importance of doing something at the border.
Oh, he's been doing something at the border, all right. Lift up doing something at the border. I thought the president was there to brag about what a success his border policy has been. This needs to be broken. Now, we're going to watch this once again, and I'll give you some commentary as it goes, because there's so many things in this just 1 minute that's so contemptible. Not least of which sort of the attitude, as usual, from Karine Jean-Pierre, as she's sort of forced to address the issue of Laken Riley's murder. Let's start right here at this spot here where she starts answering Peter Doocy's question. And again, the question is, will the issue of Laken Riley be raised at the State of the Union? I know he's put out a written statement, but will he refer to it and mention it at the State of the Union?
I do want, this is such a tragic story and obviously situation. This is someone's life that was lost. So I do.
No, this is not someone's life that was lost. This is someone's life who was taken. This is someone's life who was robbed from her and from her parents and from her future husband and her future children. This is not someone's life that was lost. She didn't get into a car accident. She didn't contract cancer. Her life was robbed from her by someone who should have never been in this country and was only in this country because of this president's policies, and was allowed to stay in this country because of this president and his political party's policies. That is not a tragedy. That is an outrage. But they're treating this situation like it was, oh, what these horrible events that happened. What can you do other than just be really sad about it? So let's be really sad. And I guarantee you that Karine Jean-Pierre, before she went out, when they talked about what questions, because they do a whole, practice session before she comes out, and they brainstorm, the whole team there, about what questions she might be asked. And I assure you that she was told, if anyone, it'll probably be Ducey, asks you a question about Laken Riley, make sure you take some time to express your condolences and your deep sorrow for what happened. We don't want to come across as cold. In fact, she even gives away the story here in a moment, as you'll hear.
Do want to always acknowledge and extend our deepest condolences to her family and to her friends and the people who loved her. And so want to always be sure to say that. And
I want to always be sure to say that, right? In other words, if you naturally, compassionately, emotionally feel that in your heart, somebody raises the question about Laken Riley, and the horrible circumstances of her murder, you should just naturally express those condolences. You don't have to actually, literally say, well, I always want to be sure to say this. Just say it. The reason that she actually says, I want to be sure to say that, is because in her mind, she was saying, be sure to say this, be sure to say this, be sure to say this. This is all choreographed and pre-planned and written. And even then they get it wrong. A little bit more.
Because it's so tragic. Look, I don't have anything to share about the president's speech as it relates to that particular question that you have.
Yeah, you know why? Because what's he gonna say? Seriously, what's he gonna say about Laken Riley and that murder? You gonna try to blame that on Republicans? I mean, he's so audacious in his lies. He could, I guess, attempt to do that. But of course she doesn't have anything to say about whether Biden's going to mention this in his speech or not, because you imagine what the speechwriters would do. Hey, guys, we got to put a couple of lines in there about Laken Riley. Make sure it's good. The sound you hear are speechwriters for Joe Biden jumping out of the top window of the old executive office building at 1600 Pennsylvania, because they'd rather kill themselves than actually have to figure out a way to put the contemptible words in Joe Biden's mouth to address the murder of Laken Riley. He's not going to say anything. But then she continues here.
But we want to always be sure that we lift up the families who have lost their loved ones in that way. And I would reiterate, you just asked me.
They didn't lose their loved one. Their loved one was stolen from them. We want to lift them up. We want to lift them up, though. I'm sure they feel a lot better. I just say, and we'll finish with this. Tomorrow is the State of the Union. That's why we're here down on Capitol Hill. We're meeting with members of the House Republican majority. We're going to be doing some interviews with them for radio and for town hall as well. At the State of the Union, it's traditional that the president, as well as members of Congress, have special guests in the gallery. And those guests represent something, right? They represent something that matters, something inspirational, something moving, or something political, for that matter. And I'll leave you with this. Tomorrow at the State of the Union, as Joe Biden is speaking and trying to lie to the American people about what a great job he's doing and what a great state the union is in, ask yourself this. If Laken Riley's parents were to be special guests of someone at the State of the Union, do you think they'd be the special guests of Joe Biden? Or do you think they would be the special guests of Speaker Johnson or Chairman Jim Jordan or some of the Republicans from her home state who are actually trying to stop the policies that led to their daughter's murder? When you answer that, you'll know exactly what Joe Biden's going to say about Laken Riley at the State of the Union. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for watching us live on Rumble. We're here every single day at noon. And thanks for, sharing this special version of the show today as we're live on Capitol Hill with, look at that. You guys see Mary Margaret Olahan right there from Daily Signal. Hey, Mary Margaret, wave hi. Hey, she is Daily Signal Heritage Foundation. We like her. And we'll be back tomorrow in our usual studio, by the way. But thanks for watching. Make sure you follow and share and like and subscribe and all those things that you love doing and all the things that you do that keep us going. And we appreciate your viewership. We'll see you next time. My name is Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.